Hey, Asiya.
Hi Jay.
Hey.
Hey,
Hey.
how are you doing?
Good. Yeah, pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm okay. Tired from travels, but otherwise good.
I bet.
Yeah.
Uh,
What's that?
body's catching up to the
Yeah.
time.
Catching up. Yeah. Yes.
Stephanie is going to be zooming in
Hmm.
from a different space, so she'll be on in a second.
Okay.
I make a couple of announcements,
Hmm.
and then you all can go.
Okay. Sounds good.
Sorry, you know, maybe better. Hey, there's Roz. Hi, Mika. Hi, Edie. There's some wonderful guests here. Um, we're gonna get started. Um, it's Sunday morning, and we have our first improvised conversation. This is something that is really distinct about this program. That we've been doing now for a few years. And it's not just sort of loose conversation, it's something we've taken from Bell Hook's pedagogy in teaching to transgress. It kind of echoes the conversations that she started having with white feminists in the 70s, I think, and 80s. And I'm really just honored that we're starting off with Stephanie and Asiya. I've seen the future. I've been there, and I know it's just an amazing conversation. The cool thing is these conversations start before you all get to witness. Like the conversation is just an ongoing conversation that has already started. So that's something to consider. Some logistics for today. We have workshop right at 10, so a pretty short break. At 12:30, our second self-care module is going to be happening. And it's going to be mainly just a discussion about like how to get rest, how to get energy, and really how to get into creative energy. So that's gonna start around 12:30, so you'll have some time to go off and get some food. It's optional. You don't have to attend the self-care modules. And then the third self-care module, which will happen later next week or this week or whatever this week is, will be, Stephanie is willing to spend some one-on-one time with people and do consultations if you have any questions about stuff. So that's happening at 12:30. We have cohort meetings. We have a very also special, we have two improvised conversations today, Pupe Misaki and Brandon Shimoda. That was not planned. They basically just asked me to do it. So this is really cool that we have two incredible conversations. We're beginning the day with a conversation and we're ending the day with a conversation. Without further ado, let's welcome Stephanie and Asiya.
Hi, everyone. It's really good to see you here. And hi, Stephanie.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Afternoon, or it's noon for you now.
Yeah, now it is. Yeah. Yeah. How are you doing?
I feel really energized by um, kind of how we've decided to approach this, that we sort of created a little cluster of things to explore in a cave, and
Mm,
without knowing where it would take us or even how they're necessarily linked.
hmm
I was really feeling into that this morning, that kind of this like sort of fertile and nervous energy of not knowing what's to come, but knowing that the pieces are all um, alive with something.
Yeah, and trusting that also, trusting that aliveness and trusting that the pieces kind of they find their own resonance with one another and find ways to exist with one another and kind of trusting that um, that kind of like soft thread that kind of guides them and connects them. And I think that that feels like something that we're thinking about together and something also that has kind of marked the first few days of the time here, all the time here. So I'm happy, with you and alongside you to kind of continue that line of thinking.
I love this soft thread,
Mm-hmm.
and and there's a tenderness to that, and a trust and a faith, and it makes me think about um, the coherence between things. And I was just looking at your incredible book this morning. I don't know if everybody has this book. You should. Mandible Wishbone Solvent. And there's um Asya has this piece called Nearly Any Two Things Can Cohere. And I just love that concept so much. And it feels so true to me in the world. And kind of like this spiritual physics of the world and of art, and a way of being that's really healing and beautiful. And could I just read a teeny section?
Sure, yes.
Let's see. But if we remember nothing of the middle, the acute thirst, the unrelenting sun at noon, the ache in the lower back, the sores covering someone's feet, then can we create a supple generosity that invites new pathways to form, ones embedded and etched in a long attenuated love, which has nothing to do with any nation, with your nation, but everything to do with the fact that as long as we are alive, we are bound to each other. As long as we are alive, we are bound to each other.
I still believe that. I mean, I want to exist in a space where I can always believe that. That essay, I wrote that essay in 2019 and and I kind of debated for a while of like where to place it. Thank you for bringing those words into our conversation. It's like something that um yeah, this kind of orientation that I have been thinking about and kind of writing towards, I guess, for as long as I've been writing and even before writing, just like living and existing and trying to think about um, the yeah the possible coherence of things, even when they feel so far apart from one another. Like, what does it mean I guess maybe it's a question of like, what does it mean to imagine that the distance is not as far as we think it could be? And what happens in that space where we imagine that two things can kind of be held in accord, or two things can have some sort of resonance? Like, how does that change our orientation towards the looking? And that's something that we've been talking about so much together, this idea of looking and seeing, and this devotion and attention that kind of comes in the aftermath of like really looking and really trying to look and really trying to see.
Yeah, how to really, really look and how to really see from such a deep place. And we've been reading Agua Viva in our workshop, and the sort of whole impetus for this conversation and our this kind of like theme that just emerged for us came from this one quote that I'll read from Clarice Lispector. In truth, I'm still not quite seeing properly the thread of what I'm writing you. I think I never shall, but I acknowledge the dark in which the two eyes of the soft panther shine. I acknowledge the dark in which the two eyes of the soft panther shine. Darkness is my hothouse, enchanted darkness. I'll keep talking to you and taking the risk of disconnection. I write to you because I don't understand myself.
Mm.
There's there's a really interesting connection between this act of looking and devotion and kind of this extension of the imagination and this idea of the unknown and the darkness of the unknown, kind of this fertile, alive darkness where there's like an animal intelligence, an animal's gaze, an animal looking.
Yes, and I'm really called to this. Can you remind me which page this is on? Is it on 26 or am I completely
Yeah, page 21.
21? I was thinking about this line that you read. I'll keep talking to you and taking the risk of disconnection, like this sense um, of continuing to try to find this, like kind of continuing, and this like sensibility that comes with like thinking with, and like thinking aloud and thinking through something, this experience and desire to try and like find the threads and find the coherence, but also this uh, comfort or kind of acceptance of the fact that maybe you don't find it also, like maybe you take, as Clarice Lispector says, I'll keep talking to you and taking the risk of disconnection. Like there's also a possibility there, and an acknowledgement there that sometimes the like that coherence or that connection, maybe it's not going to be found. And that's the unknowing also. Like you can't know that until you try, until you make an attempt to try it actually.
Yeah, there's a real like a true risk in that, and being willing to really meet otherness, I think requires a risk of not knowing, of not assuming that you can know somebody or something else completely, beginning with yourself, and and yet extending the imagination into that place
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and thinking about kind of like the radical empathy of being in imagination with another in a place of the unknown.
Mm. I
There's
wonder.
an Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to read this one line you had too. Where is it? Let's see. It was the line about becoming a bridge. Oh, here it is.
Mm.
Be a bridge over something. Be echo or residue or green question. And I love that this bridge also has this open, like a green question, like there's something alive and unanswered, but extending itself.
Mm-hmm.
That to me feels like life. It's the unknown question that we enter. And yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and I wonder for you, Stephanie, I wonder how this kind of like this unknowing and this like sense of um, this like kind of porous curiosity. I wonder how it guides your own reading. I wonder how it shapes like I was thinking recently the school where I teach I mostly teach children. I also teach at anyway, I mostly teach children, and the librarian at school recently sent an email to all of us, and she asked if we could please send her. She wanted to know how we read, and she wanted to think past genre and think past you know, like what like typical ways of like thinking categorically and thinking like this like kind of binary reading. And she was wondering how like what are some other ways to read. And I was thinking about the ways that I like to read, which has to do with like one of the ways I like to read is like reading, for example, like reading Agua Viva, and then if there's a reference to another text, kind of reading in sequence or reading kind of just like following that, or reading one writer and then looking at the writers that influenced them or the writers they loved or writers they reference. And I wonder for you, this sense of like bridge thinking or this like porous curiosity, I wonder how it shapes the ways that you kind of like find something and want to kind of follow that thread in reading or
I love that question. And I love this term porous curiosity because it implies not just a curiosity that probes outward, but that admits and allows something else to enter. And I think that that kind of like constellation style of reading that you're talking about, I do that too. And it's like I have a word I made up with a friend called tangentry, where it's like you follow all these tangents emerge, and it sometimes means I read very slowly because I'll stop and go on into a labyrinth of these associational things. But I really believe in that kind of like free wandering and where it leads, and sort of letting it live like that, like letting it kind of stir and animate something, and then let that direct me, you know?
hmm hmm
Yeah, I think there is something about that reading style. And I think it was Alejandro who mentioned like picking up a book from its middle. I do that a lot too, and like sometimes just I never get past that point. There's something so alive there. Um, but there's also this kind of inner battle I've had to overcome of this like linearity, or like how one should read beginning to end. Um, this kind of imposition of like thoroughness, or stick to the, focus, stick to the thing. I've had to sort of open that for myself, and like really honor the kind of wild wandering attention.
hmm
And it's been lovely to do that.
Yeah, I love this idea of the tangentry. It's so nice. I feel like it really speaks to the way that I also want to exist with, yeah, with like the work of others, with my own work that I'm trying to make for myself. I often think about this like trilogy or triptych or trinity that exists in the ways I like to read also, where it's often like if I'm working on a longer piece, I have the piece itself that I'm working on, and then I'll often have like maybe a visual work, a painting, or maybe a piece of like live art, dance, or choreography, and then maybe a collection of poems or short stories. And it's kind of this like triptych that kind of follows and kind of keeps traveling in this like 1 2 3 1 2 3, but not sequentially necessarily, but kind of just like exchanging kind of in this alive exchange with each other. And so I think that also is this kind of like tangentry or pageantry even, you know.
There, I love that when things extend in that way, and I find that too. And you'll, do you ever have that experience where there's like a synchronicities? You know, it's like you're reading this, and then suddenly you see this painting, and then
Yeah.
somebody talks to you about this thing, and they're all cohering, and it feels like magic. And
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah, it feels like magic when that happens.
um,
And maybe it's also this, and I think it is magical. I think for sure there's something magical. And I think it also has to do with like this like invitation to find the magic, you know, like this invitation to want to kind of exist in that space and, you know, create from that space that then you can kind of invite that kind of synchronicity in. So
yeah, it's like there's a fertile invisible ground, you know, and it's like when, like, I think of magic as a very real, tangible thing that isn't of like, you know, high fantasy wizardry, but actually just like exactly what's happening under the soil with the mycelia. Like there is this deep connectiveness to life itself. And
mhm,
when we're in touch with that, things cohere. Um,
mhm,
and and then we discover things in following the coherence. And it's kind of a different way of approaching than like, I know what I want to write about, I know what I want to say, I'm going to go say it now. You know, it's this whole other way of like being attuned to discovery through this mystery that's very real.
yeah, right. And it reminds me now also what you just said about this sense of discovery and mystery. It reminds me also of this like novice space that I really love existing in, where it feels like things are new and they can stay new. And I think part of this like idea of intuitively like kind of following a trace without really knowing of like what's going to come. I think it also allows me as someone who's trying to make something to kind of exist in this novice space, which I find to be like, I don't know, it's a space that I really love to be in, the space where things feel new and fresh, where it doesn't feel like I know, or I don't feel wed to what I do know. I feel like there's some things that I do know now at this point in my writing life, but there's also so much that I don't know. And I think for me as a writer, as an artist, I really love this space of like not knowing how to do something, not knowing, yeah, just this kind of novice, this kind of like new space, and what that can invite, where you don't necessarily know all the rules yet and don't feel wed to following them, even if you do know them. Um,
It kind of like opens up this space for awe and wonder, and it's like close to what you know, like a child's looking has this openness because of what isn't known. And so there's this way for the world to like meet the world with a lot of wonder.
mhm,
And we all know the experience of like something becoming so ordinary, like whether it's a tree that we grew up outside our window, or a family member, or anything, something we're so familiar with, we stop looking at it.
mhm,
And we somehow become blind to it.
yeah.
And oh, there's this actually that makes me think. I found this little quote by Rilke. Let me pull it up really quick. Um, about this kind of idea of like returning to something that you already know again and again, even though we know love's landscape and the little churchyard with its lonesome names and the terrible reticent gorge in which the others land. Again and again, the two of us walk out together under the ancient trees, lay ourselves down again and again among the flowers, and look up at the sky. And I just love that so much, this idea of like regardless of what we know, there's something to be had in returning and looking again and again. And there's layers, right? It's like also what we know about love and death. And yet
Mhm.
to live is to be with, you know,
Mhm.
despite what we might know, to still attend to.
Yes, exactly. Right. This idea of um, this idea and this knowledge that there's always more to uncover in seeing one more time and seeing again. Um, that just reminded me of this Arthur Z poem, which is called Here. Maybe I'll read it, actually. I feel like, or maybe I'll read an excerpt of it. See if I can pull it up. Hmm. Yeah, I feel like so much of this poem is, well, maybe I'll just read it. But one thing I wanted to say was that I watched a short interview with Arthur Z where he was talking about the writing of this poem, and he said that, oh, I forgot what he said. I lost my train of thought. I'm going to read the poem and then it's going to come to me. Okay, it's called Here. Here a snail on a wet leaf shivers and dreams of spring. Here a green iris in December. Here the topaz light of the sky. Here one stops hearing a twig break and listens for deer. Here the art of the ventriloquist. Here the obsession of a kleptomaniac to steal red pushpins. Here the art of the alibi. Here one walks into an abandoned farmhouse and hears a tarantella. Here one dreams a bear claw and died. Here a humpback whale leaped out of the ocean. Here the outboard motor stopped, but the man made it to this island with one oar. Here the actor forgot his lines and wept. Here the art of prayer. Here marbles, buttons, thimbles, dice, pins, stamps, beads. Here one becomes terrified. Here one wants to see a god, sees and becomes clear amber. Here one is clear pine.
I really love that, just the attention to hear and what is with us in many
Yeah,
ways.
in all the many ways. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it makes me wonder if we should take 5 minutes for everybody to attend to what's here and
Mm.
maybe make, even if it's just three things, to like list some things that you are noticing within or around the room, but like really just notice like what is here with us.
Let's do that.
Yeah. Should we take 5 minutes
Let's do 5 minutes. Yeah.
and have everyone maybe people on Zoom could write into the chat, or then we people in person could speak out.
That's great.
So I maybe instead of the chat, I put a Google Doc, a link, a shared Google Doc.
I added a Google Doc too, Steph. So maybe I will. Let's add to yours, okay? If anyone's
Yeah,
adding, add to the one that Stephanie just made.
I want to use Asia's.
Can add to both. That'd be fun.
I'm gonna try using Asia's. Is there anybody without a computer who has something they want written for them?
We're adding Oh, sorry.
Could be nice to start sharing some of these, maybe reading them aloud.
How should we do it?
I wonder if maybe we can just take turns reading them, and anyone can start reading. If no one else is reading, you can feel free to start reading, and maybe just read a few lines, and then when there's silence, someone else can start reading.
I can start if that's okay.
It's great, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Here, lukewarm coffee, half drank. Here, mason jars of highlighters and pens and pencils, sharpened ends pointed up. Here, an open notebook with a sun made of spirals and not sun hues of purple and green. Here, a bag mostly packed, mostly ready to be slung over his shoulder as I walk out the door. Here, just here.
Someone else can keep reading. Maybe we even start from the very beginning, and it's okay if you're not reading your own hears. They can just become all of our hears.
And don't worry, just unmute yourself and jump in. And if two people start reading at the same time, that's okay too. The shadows and light happening behind me, flickering over me, reflections of the curtains, shadows on my screen, winter's nest, reminding me that I'm not there, but here.
We have, Stephanie, we have some, and we have some in chat.
I'm going to paste
and,
it in.
and then also if somebody in the room wants to just read out, because there are a lot of people in the room who are just writing in their notebooks.
Okay.
So can you add the link to the chat again? Because I'm not on the chat too yet.
For some reason, I can't paste Aurora's into the doc.
I'll try from my side. Okay, it worked from this side. Okay.
Also, what if you and I read
Let's read it.
the emerging poem?
Yeah. Winter juncos in the railing outnumber the greedy nuthatch. Stained glass dogwoods around the room refract household ghosts. Fog mutes the Douglas fir trunks.
Here is Asiya's book beside my hand, and there her eyes looking down at her own hand in Brooklyn, putting something in ink, something coming in, something going out.
Here, a snoring bulldog, my fiance typing on a laptop, an electric heater steadily humming, automatic air or wind, the typing of fingerprints, footsteps on carpet floors, my breath catching up with my lungs, Water boiling, pen dancing across a piece of paper, the echo of Zoom.
Here, lukewarm water nicely settles. Here, the triptych flames of the candle flicker. Here, the forever buzz of motorized objects. Here, blood and annoyance countered by the white noise of child's play, care, and observation of my husband, cool water, and the remnants of lunch.
Here, it looks like it's about to snow, pewter clouds blanketing the sky. Here, my daughter dancing ballet next to me, humming, zumming, Here, oracle cards and books stacked side by side in front of a cracked window, stray bird squawks, leaking into the small studio apartment. Here, my fiance lays in bed with the cats scrolling on their phone, a blanket my mother made draped over them.
Here, lukewarm coffee half drank. Here, mason jars of highlighters and pens and pencils, sharpened ends pointed up. Here, an open notebook with a sun made of spirals in not sun hues of purple and green. Here, a bag mostly packed, mostly ready to be slung over a shoulder as I walk out the door. Here, just here.
Here, warm water by the computer while I listen to the conversation between Asiya Wadud and Stephanie Adams-Santos. A spark of inspiration pops up as my brain tries to stay focused with their words while adding new ideas to my fantasy of animated superheroes and poetry. Here I go back and forth from two worlds, soaring through this chaotic action with storytelling, then flying myself back down to earth, reminding myself why I am here.
Here we have dressed ourselves, here a fire extinguisher in repose, here bricks stacked on brick, stacked on brick, here a plant doing its best, here industrial carpet weave, here yellow socks, no socks, here my always low-grade worry about my small southern pod, here churchgoers of a vaguish kind.
Here a desirous Sunday, here my eager hand, here the bed, frame, and floor, then wood, dirt, rock, and eventual core. Here the door closed against the church, the fake Rothko, the real plant, the table where Stephanie gave me a reading on Saturday, Abigail's white sneakers, 2 pens, one I loaned to Jess.
Here the tenuous warmth of a cup of coffee, here a seat by the window, here the morning desire to meet the restlessness of a morning mind.
Here are loneliness and pride and warmth play. Here the tropical plants struggle in pots. Here the slim, obedient trees at the windows watch the writers. Here the whitewashed walls never speak. Here the train station summons ignored. Here the forgotten soil rests under the concrete. Here the quiet heart fears to speak.
Here my legs are crossed to try to fit into a chair. Here it is morning and I'm slowly finding permission, and I'm slowly finding permission to slowly unfurl as is. Here above and around the silence, air is being moved from one chamber to another. Here I am loving, closing my eyes and breathing. It is a sensual pleasure. Here a siren touches the edge.
What is here with us? My throat tender, neck strained, eyes tired, but I teeter between presence and the constellation of tangentry sparked by listening by notes. My books is calling, as are the texts on my TBR stack, as are those I've yet to discover. I want to live in the slowness of noticing, the way the tea soothes and warms me, the trees and leaves of my childhood, in California, in Michoacan. I want to sit with the altar and dim the lights. I wonder what the tangent tree looks like. I see the aperture narrow, the lens darken during conversation. Thoughts like lightning, sparking and spreading all around. I feel like that is such a good place to pause. And given the time, maybe it's also a good place to pause. And yeah, I really, yeah, I think I want to thank you, Stephanie, for suggesting that we do that. It feels like, I don't know, it always feels so good to me to do something collectively that we can then like have and hold on to and come back to again and again. And now we have that in the here's. And we can keep adding to it, like just updating the date and the time and keep adding to it throughout the time that we have this week together.
Yeah, I love that. And I would say if anyone wants to go further with it, maybe another way of looking would be to see what it would be to extend your imagination into the things you observed and look back at yourself through that lens, through that othering. Thank you, Asya. I love to swim in the ethers with you.
Likewise, so much. Yes, thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Let's give the Stephanie also. Thank you all so much. That was really special and beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we can start workshop just a couple minutes late at 10:03-ish. And yeah, awesome. Thank you.